Got a full slate of commissioners, our administrator, and the clerk of the board. And at this time, I'll call the meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We got January 4th, January 11th, February 11th, and February 1st. Or excuse me, we got January 4th, January 11th special meeting, January 11th regular meeting, and February 1st minutes to approve. And there was no special meeting on January 11th. Is there any corrections, revisions, or additions?
Karen, I sent you an email for the January 4th. It references under Commissioner Reports a nomination for a state committee. So I sent you an email link with the correct title for the committee, and it's a nomination, or an appointment, not a nomination. But I sent you the email with the title. I think we can approve them. It's just a Scrivener's error. I think we can fix it after the fact, but I think we can approve the minutes today. Just note that that title needs to be changed and change it from nominated to appointed, please.
Anything, Rocky?
I have no changes.
Commissioner Mullen. Well, after reading through these minutes, I've sort of brought up some history of my service as commissioner and the legal counsel that I have received, and the special meeting that was called, which wasn't done according to our RCWs. Looking back on the history of my 3 years in service here, the I-976 situation where I tried to get Franklin County to join me in that lawsuit and told we couldn't do it. The redistricting with Casey Bruner.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
No, excuse me, Commissioner Peck, but I have the floor, and I'm going through a history of the meeting minutes that brought up the special meeting, what's taken place, the legal counsel that I've received. There has been no consistency. It looks like our
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
PA is in his own political interests, and I think I'm going to have to ask for a investigation into our PA. I'm stating a fact of what's going to take place.
Mr. Chairman, third and final time, point of order.
Point of order, Commissioner Peck.
Chair is out of order. This is not on the agenda. It is clearly a separate topic. The agenda item before us is to approve or not approve specific sets of minutes. I would ask that if you want to have this conversation, you appropriately schedule it for an executive session under the performance of a public official.
Well, January 11th special meeting minutes. There is no meeting of that because there was a meeting that was called that was not according to RCW. There has been other things that have happened in the past. I'm stating a fact.
If you'd wish
that
not
I am going to ask for an
fine.
investigation of our PA. So hearing no other information, the meeting minutes of the past January 4th, 11th, and February 1st have been okayed. Let's move on down to office business. Vouchers.
We have one voucher this morning. I move for approval of fund expenditures in a total amount of $641,142.24 as presented, and note that it has been reviewed and signed by 2 representatives of the Auditor's Office and the County Administrator.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I believe we have 2 items on the consent agenda.
Move for approval of consent agenda items 1 and 2.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second for the 2 items on the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Move on down to Commissioner Administrator updates. Keith?
Good morning, Commissioners. Over the past week, I've participated in a number of different meetings. The WASAC call yesterday discussing changes to the health board that are being required by legislation. Still working with McKinstry on their proposal for the HAPO Center. We're going to have some executive discussion today regarding the Growth Management Hearing Board decision regarding the appeal of our comp plan, spending some time with BCES on strategic planning, a new governance model for that BCES. I met with a gentleman from Sustainable Energy Ventures who explained some work that they are doing with the City of Pasco at the Pasco Water Reuse Facility, as well as a large dairy up in the Mesa area. And so we'll be hearing more about some of those projects going forward. And then continuing some interviews and work towards the permanent hiring of a Public Works Director. Those are the major areas I've been talking about this week.
Thank you. Commissioner Peck?
We're in the middle of the legislative session. We're about halfway through, so most of the activity this week has been focused in that area. The Legislative Steering Committee meeting last Friday, the typical 2 hours plus going through dozens, if not hundreds of bills that are affecting counties. The same WASAC call that Keith was on yesterday, which is a significant one in terms of the restructuring of local health boards. We got some clarity on the varying opinions as to what a tribal member on the board means. We got an opinion from the person who drafted and sponsored the bill. We got an opinion from a couple of other organizations, and still a lot of questions about what that health board needs to look like to comply with the law, and it all needs to be done by July 1st, if not sooner. 5974 is the $16 billion transportation package, which I'll note again has $0 for county road maintenance and preservation. WASAC has been strongly and publicly opposed, and we've testified with the Senate Transportation Committee expressing that opposition, that there's no money for county road preservation and maintenance. Thanks.
Commissioner Mullen?
So I took part in the local decision makers meeting last week. Also met with community leaders concerning the mental health and our plans for going forward to ensure that the residents of Franklin County have a voice in how our tax dollars are going to be spent. I think one point was made very clear is that Franklin County residents want to have a voice in how our mental health tax dollars are going to be spent and what the solution is going to be going forward. The consensus was we need a one-step program, not more of the same of what we have in place now. But there's definitely concerns, and Franklin County residents want to make sure they have equal representation in the mental health. Also had the Ben Franklin Transit meeting. They voted in a new chair, which is Will McKay. We also have new choices on the replacement of the operations building that we'll be voting on next time, as opposed to building a 3-story operations buildings. They're looking at maybe 2 stories, 1 story with a off-site location. There was also some mentioning of different funding that could be a possibility for the Ben Franklin Transit, although there was no discussion on the strings that were attached to it, and they were very concerning, these attachments that would be put forward to try to get this funding. But as at this point, I'm not sure if it's going to go through or not. So That's my update for this last week.
Thank you, Commissioner Mullen. Yes, I have the Port of Pasco meeting, Ben Franklin Transit meeting, and before the Ben Franklin Transit meeting that day, I got a text from Senator Sessler, and he said, Ben Franklin Transit fools testified pro for the transit plan. And I said, our meeting is tonight. I'm one of the directors. Can you tell me more? He said, taxes on license plates, permits of all kinds, ends the sale of gas vehicles. This transit plan is going to end the sale of gas vehicles in the state of Washington. Utility taxes expanded, options and more. No projects near us, only Democrat support. So you can see that we are being infiltrated not only with gun bills, but just nonsense here, stopping the sale of gas vehicles. And then I've been contacted too about the mental health and the fact that our 3 commissioners here had several emails about the fact that we need to pick our people for that board and make sure that Franklin County is represented well. And I think that that is very important for Franklin County to be of our own people on that board and equal in status. There's a lot happening behind the scenes right now in this mental health and the amount of money that's being collected. I think there's a grab for power here, and we need to make sure that we utilize that money for the good of our area. And we need to work with Benton County, but we got to be equal partners. And that's the end of the updates that I have. We are now to public comment, so if there's anybody that would like to come forward, please do. Keith, anybody on the phone?
Not yet.
Good morning. I wondered if we could get an update on where we are with the UGA expansion that I believe that we sort of lost in court against the Growth Management Hearings Board, and I wonder if we can get an update on that.
You want me to respond to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, certainly. Yes, the Growth Management Hearing Board has issued a preliminary decision that challenges some of our work with the City of Pasco in redesigning the urban growth boundary. We have a fairly significant team of people looking at that, including some outside consultants. We have until the end of the month to decide our strategy going forward. So there's still some decisions on our end that need to be made. We met with the team, meaning the county, the city, Pasco, the port, and their legal representatives, and are continuing that discussion. So I see Nicole walking into the room. She's our expert on the matter and has been advising us, but we've been having regular updates. So hopefully we'll be able to devise a plan that meets the needs of the county going forward. But that'll probably still be a couple weeks away before we make that decision.
Is there anybody else, public comment?
Good morning. I was disappointed to see that Greater Columbia Behavioral Health wasn't going to be here to give us updates on what they are doing currently to add services to our community. But if I understand right, they are meeting with Lords as of right now, and so I hope that both sides, it's a productive meeting for them. But I would like to remind everybody, with that being said, well, it seems to be people are grappling, entities are grappling with who gets control, what contracts are made, that there are people in our community overdosing. There are people in our community committing suicide, and there's a lot of crime going on that would not be happening if people had their mental health and SUD problems addressed. So I would like to remind everybody that when we proposed the 0.1% tax, it was for mental health and substance use disorder. And if we want a chance in hell of it being successful, all the entities need to work together. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lori Hales. I am a Franklin County resident. I am here in regards to the Advisory Committee for Behavioral Health Needs in Benton and Franklin counties and request that you consider appointing at least 5 community members to assist professionals and keep Benton and Franklin County appointments separate. I've been hearing rumors that potentially we may be running into some issues on purchasing the old KGH building. And I thought that was really interesting that I hadn't heard the rumor until after we passed the sales tax implementation. So as Angie said, is this starting to become a money grab, or are we forgetting why we passed this tax? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So a few brief statements on this topic that's just been addressed. Well over 36 months ago, I, along with other law enforcement officials, mental health workers, medical workers, nonprofits, lawyers, our justice system, a large number of people came together to address how is it we fix our ever-growing problems that we have in the community with narcotics and mental health issues, et cetera, et cetera. And that group of people thought it'd be best that we identify some sort of a system, a one-stop system, of where that could be and how that could work out. And there was discussion about KGH. There was discussion about the service model, who was going to provide that. All of those type of things that were discussed, along with the 0.1%. And during that 36 months, I think it's fair to say that that group of people, which counts in the hundreds, wanted to have a say in a recovery center, what it looked like, how it was going to be operated, and they wanted to have a say of who the service provider was going to be. Fast forward today, and for me, I feel like I have people telling me who my service provider is going to be, what the system's going to look like, and it's being made, those decisions are being made in a vacuum without community input. I know this, you don't get the community's input, it'll fail, and it's just going to be another boondoggle without people's input. The people that actually need to use the system and need to be a part of implementing the system. And for people to think that they know what's best for the community, they're wrong. They have no idea what this community wants or what another community wants. What needs to happen is a bi-county, all community coming together to make a decision. What does a recovery center look like? How are we going to spend this money? What service model do we want? Because there's still a lot of arguments out there. And personally, I'm offended that officials step out and decide they're going to tell me what the model is. And I'm offended when people tell me, oh, well, this has got nothing to do with that, Sheriff. It does have something to do with it. We're putting the cart before the horse. The community needs to decide who the service provider is going to be and what that model looks like. The community needs to decide what the complex looks like with the wraparound services. And then the community needs to decide all these different pieces of the pie, how they fit into that model and how it works for the community, which in the end result is going to make a safer community for everybody, and the services reached out to people. And I think we need to slow our roll, understand what's going on, get information from GCHB and Yakima, Compre Health. How did we get here? Who made these decisions? Why were these decisions made without community input? And slow down, because we got one chance to make this right and to do it right. And now's the time to slow down and look at it, and for everybody to have equal say for a bi-county problem that's existed for decades that we need to improve upon. And it will start with what is the problem, identifying that problem, what are the symptoms of that problem, And how do you fix that problem and move forward and build upon fixing the problem? And I think that's what we're missing here, is the lack of not identifying what the problem is and listening to a lot of people out there that are well-educated, well-versed on the problems. And people need to just stop, slow down, and look at it holistically, and let's do it right the first time versus piecemealing it. If an organization such as Greater Columbia Mental Health or Yakima Conference think they're going to come in and tell the community what it is they need, it's destined for failure.
Thank you. Anybody else for public comment?
Do have one caller whenever you're ready.
Okay, we'll take the caller now.
Okay. Good morning, Wanda.
Yes, thank you. Hey, thank you. I am just calling in to reaffirm all that the public speakers have stated, including the sheriff. And that was my concern when this was voted. And I had said, I hope that this works, because once you give money before you get the details so many times, then corrupt figures come in and they see an opportunity instead of the actual purpose of this and what the community wants. So for me, before one penny is spent, I think there needs to be a plan, and that plan has to be with the community involvement, and those that are really like the sheriff is an important voice, because he's on the front lines. He's one of those on the front lines. And to not have people that know what is actually happening on the ground, being involved in this, is just going to be just a huge failure, which is why government always fails. I mean, if I go to a bank for money to get a business loan, and I go without a business plan, I'm not going to get one penny. You have to have a business plan before you can get the funding. And that's exactly what needs to happen here. And it has to include those that know what they're talking about, and not those at the top speaking down to the people. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other calls, public comment?
George Dockstetter, Self Landing Road, Franklin County. Couple things, and one of them is the Transit Authority turning us into another boondoggle, spending all that money for another damn building, and the one they're in's not even 20 years old. I think the two county commissioners that sit on that board have got to speak up and speak loudly about wasting our money in Franklin and Benton counties on this. It's a joke. And the only thing that works for Ben Franklin Transit is Dial-A-Ride and the van pool. And if that's what's working, then let's go that way. The buses are empty unless you see them going to the CBC in the morning and the afternoon. And they're making direct routes out, and the rest of it is a joke. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is the Growth Management Board turned us down. My understanding is they turned us down because we were taking in too much farmland. Is that correct? Well, the problem we've got with our growth boundary is everything's farmland. And if they're going to jerk us over the coals for that, let's just don't approve one and let the city annex property piece by piece and tell the growth management group to go kiss off. Thank you.
Anybody else for public comment? Anybody else on the phone, Keith?
Nope.
Okay. Seeing nobody else come to the mic, We'll move down to position reclassification for HR generalist position. Mr. Wyatt.
Good morning, Commissioners. I come to you this morning with a request from my own office to reclassify 2 of the HR generalist positions in my office. One of them is more just kind of a job title change more than anything. The other reclassifying it to a lower pay grade following kind of a reevaluation of job duties and kind of how best that fits into my vision for the department. But I'm happy to answer any questions based on the read ahead or anything you have.
Questions, Commissioners?
So what is your plan?
So my plan is, as you know, there was a second HR generalist position open or added to the budget for 2022 that was held off on being filled following the departure of the prior HR director, and to allow the next HR director to kind of realize that vision. For me, I want to have that kind of person be more focused on organizational development, higher scope things that impact the county as a whole, whether it's compensation review requests, of which we have a number kind of in the pipeline in HR, benefits administration and leading that benefits renewal, benefits committee processes, policy research, things of that nature, labor relations, those kind of bigger picture things. And then the other, my request to reclassify the second generalist position to a lower pay grade, focusing more on still higher level HR duties, but things like leave administration, like workers' compensation, FMLA, PFML, kind of those more compliance-oriented job duties. And then would be the HR specialist position, focusing on those more entry-level duties that include whether it's recruitment, processing personnel action forms, processing applications, all of those things.
Looking at other counties throughout the state of equal size and population, how many people do they have on average in their HR department?
I don't know. I don't have that figure off the top of my head. I know Carly, when she did that work previously, the general rule of thumb in speaking is, kind of one, HR person for every 100 or so employees. With regard to that rule of thumb, that the legislative landscape, especially in this state, has changed greatly with the addition of certain paid family leave is one where we've seen those number of cases that we have to help administer and manage for employees skyrocket under the adoption of that program, and certainly things like long-term care that was added and then put on hold and then added again and then put back on hold. It all adds workload. So there's some legislative changes that impact HR, but generally speaking, one HR person for every 100 employees or so. But
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So what would this put totally in your office there?
It's still 4, so which was approved in the budget. It simply, affirms the pay grade of one of the generalist positions at a grade 17 and reclassifies the other one lower down to a pay grade 16.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So at the moment, there's just 2 of you in that office, is that correct?
That's correct.
Have you listed any job openings for HR?
Not yet, because I wanted to wait until there was some decision regarding the HR director position. In the event that I wasn't promoted, I didn't want to post for positions. I wanted to give the new HR director the ability to make those decisions, and my appointment to the position of HR director wasn't effective until the end of January, and so that's hence the delay in posting for the positions. But I'd like to get it. If approved today, that job posting will go out today. So.
Okay, thank you.
when I attended my orientation at Wasac, that was one of the questions I asked. A lot of the counties of similar size, and I was sort of surprised that they all had 1 to 1.5 HR personnel, and at that time, I think we were up to 4 full-time and 1 part-time. We had 5.
In my time with the county, the highest that we've had is 4.
4.
And then in
Full-time.
4, correct. And then for the 2020 budget, Carly had requested us go down to 3, and then the request to go back up to 4 was done for 2022.
The county employees approximately, 275 employees?
About full-time, when you include some part-time employees, it gets closer to 300.
So using that scale of 1 per 100, that would put us at 3 job titles.
Correct, if you're just looking at that. I will say, while I am new in role, of the last month, the bulk of my time has been spent with labor relations issues. I'm sure the sheriff can attest there's a substantial amount of workload that comes with that. So, I mean, there's work to be done. There's no shortage of work in the HR department. I think Heather and I have done a good job of keeping our heads above water over the last month. But definitely, I mean, additional help is needed. Certainly, as far as the FTE count, I believe 4 is appropriate. I think when I look back at my own experience in HR prior to being a director with just the 3 of us, I mean, we were all kept incredibly busy. There was no shortage of work either, but there were projects or initiatives that were always kind of on the back burner, things that we could never get to, enhancements to HR just because there wasn't enough time. Having that additional 4th person to spread that work around and, like I said, focus on I'd like to keep the administrative work into the staff up front and have myself and that second generalist focus on the higher scope, bigger picture items, and ultimately, provide better services to, the departments within the county.
Is there any other further discussion?
Find it interesting, this board had no difficulty at all hiring additional bodies to go out and reassess your properties and fix taxes. And yet we're stuck on adding a body in an office that, in my experience, is undersized and handles fairly complex union and bargaining negotiations, employee benefits, and a host of other things. My view is that having watched this office and all the offices in this county for going on 14 years now, that these positions are needed, or this reclassification is needed. And note that this board has already given approval. All this does is ask if they can spend $166 extra per year to restructure it in a way that the new director feels is more efficient. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer. So I move for approval of the resolution entitled Position Reclassification for Human Resources Generalist Positions, and ask the clerk to affix a number.
I'll second the motion.
There's been a motion and a second. Discussion. Well, Commissioner Peck tries to compare 2 offices that are not even comparable. That, to me, is an injustice to both offices. I, for one, am in agreement that I think 1 personnel per 100 is a good evaluation of HR. And this would put us up to 400-plus employees. We don't have that many. I think that 3 personnel would be plenty, and I think that until we grow to that size, we stick with the evaluation that Mr. White has given us, and that's 1 per 100.
I'm in agreement. I think that if the normal is 1 per 100 employees, that 3 is adequate.
So if I may ask for clarification, just so for my planning purposes, so if, the direction from the board to me is to not fill the 4th position, which was added in the 2022 budget, but continue to fill the other, or essentially the 3rd position, the vacancy that was created by my promotion.
Well, right now, we have a motion and a second on the table for 4 positions. We're in discussion.
Okay.
And we haven't made a decision.
Of course.
So,
Eric, perhaps you could clarify so that everybody's on the same page here, the distinction between the number of positions, the reclassification, the fact that the positions already exist.
Right.
I think maybe that's being missed.
Yeah, so for 2022, there were 4 FTEs approved in the HR department. The HR director, 2 HR generalists at a grade 17, and an HR specialist at a grade 14. And so my request today is to reclassify one of the generalist positions down to a grade 16. Only by virtue of county policy there would be budget savings with this matter, but as Commissioner Peck stated and indicated on the ASR, there is $166 fiscal impact because the occupant currently in the HR generalist position is receiving added class pay, and so per county policy, if a position is graded to a lower pay grade, they go to the step where they don't realize a salary decrease, and so that's where that increase in salary comes from. But if that position were vacant, there would be a budget savings.
So Eric, to try and encapsulate that and simplify it, correct me if I get this wrong, you're not asking for any new positions. You're simply saying, I've got 2 positions, one's here, one's here. I want to do this with this one and this with this one, and the total cost difference is $166 a year.
That is correct.
That's all you're doing.
Yep.
You've already got the authority for all the positions, you're just taking this one up a little and this one down a little.
Well, one of them is staying at the same pay grade. It's just a job title change only, but the other one lowered a pay grade.
But you're not adding any new positions, you're just simply taking 2 you already have and doing this and this.
That is correct.
That's all this resolution does.
That's correct.
Thank you.
so does every position in the budget get filled? Every time we do a budget?
I mean, I know of other offices.
Not in just in your office, but in all the offices.
I'm aware of other offices that don't fill positions.
Exactly.
So.
Thank you.
Okay.
Board's already given you authority and funded the position, correct?
That is my understanding when the budget is passed, yes.
Correct.
So again, you're just asking to lower 1 and raise 1.
Lower 1 and keep 1 the same. Just a job title change only from an HR generalist to an HR generalist 2 to create a series. Because if they're at separate pay grades, they can't have the same job title. So one would be an HR generalist 1 and one would be an HR generalist 2.
Move for approval.
So we've got a motion and a second on the table.
Okay.
If there's no more discussion, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that moves us on down to administration office business. Keith?
Yeah, my items are going to be covered in executive sessions and other discussions today, so I think.
Okay, then we'll move on down to public comment. Is there anybody for public comment? Anybody on the phone?
No.
Okay. Seeing that there is nobody for public comment, Then we will move on down to closed session. Keith, you want to call the closed session bargaining?
Yes,
Collective
please.
bargaining?
We're requesting a closed session under RCW 42.030.140, paragraph 4, subparagraph B, collective bargaining. Would ask that the clerk of the board, the commissioners, the county administrator, and the HR director be allowed to participate. And the sheriff, thank you. For up to 15 minutes, with the option of coming out early.
come out of closed session and
Careful with that lock.
we are out of closed session. We are out of closed session, back to normal meeting, and at this time, we'll move into executive session. Keith?
Yes. We request an executive session under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph G, evaluate qualifications of applicant for employment or review performance of a public employee. Ask for up to 15 minutes, and that myself, the clerk, and the members of the board be allowed to participate.
This isn't Nicole now, right? We're not doing
No.
Nicole yet. Not yet.
No, we've got another one, Derek. We shouldn't be long.
executive session.
Do I need to let him in, so, or I'll get around to it?
Inviting Nicole and Derek back in.
All right, we've come out of executive session, and we are going to move into another executive session. Keith, you want to call it, please?
Yes. Request an executive session for up to 60 minutes under RCW 42.30.110, paragraph 1, subparagraph I, to discuss with legal counsel matters relating to agency enforcement actions, litigation, or potential litigation. Request that members of the board, county administrator, the clerk to the board, our planning and building director, Derek Bratton, our outside consultant from AHBL, Nicole Stickney, and outside counsel, Todd Hume, be allowed to participate, as well as Jen Johnson from the PA's office. Jen, are you still on the phone? Todd, are you on the phone?
I think Todd, we have to put them
On a different
Oh, wait.
We have come out of executive session. We're back in regular session. Is there any other business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.